All right. Well, good morning. My name is Dr. Alvin S. Perry. I have been a vendor for Omega Sci-Fi for 10 years, and I just got my Delta license right before the national convention. And my topic this morning is around product optimization. I started out with my first convention in 2014 doing bow ties, and I transitioned from bow ties and accessories to now I'm doing custom blazers, custom suits that are branded. So with the Omega gear as well as with the Delta gear. So if you wanted to just look at the sites, I have two sites. One is omegablazers.com and the other site is deltablazers.com. And one of the things that I've noticed is that vendors are coming to these events with way too much product. And where it takes me, 30 minutes to set up my booth because I've basically streamlined my process where it's paperless. It's all digital. All my orders are done digital from my customer cell phones. I don't need extra power from the facility. Um, I don't, need that move. I don't need a truck for move in. I basically have mannequins, my step and repeat, and blazer or apparel products, and that's it. Now, what I have done, every uh, conclave or every regional or district that I've done or state that I've done for Omega, I would do environmental scanning. And that's go around and look and see what other vendors are selling. Because at the end of the day, for those of you who are Greek and that are vending, you know that your particular organization, you love stuff that you can't get everywhere. You love stuff that is going to be unique. And so what I've done is the products that I have, no one else in the country sells what I sell. So when back in 22, I pretty much launched my blazers, custom blazers, at the National Conclave in Charlotte. We had about 5,500 registered attendees, and we had about 180 vendors. I didn't have a problem because my products are so specific and nichey, and nobody else is selling what I sell. So any event that I go to, I'm more so concerned with the customers having funds enough to pay for the products versus, there are too many vendors. But the biggest challenge I see is that fact that vendors are bringing in too much product, way too much product. And you're taking 5 or 6 hours, whatever it is, to unload your product, to set up your booth. And then when it's all over, you are doing the same thing. You're taking, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours because you got to break all that stuff down and deal with it. And all the inventory you have is money that's in your pocket, that should be in your pocket. So I would advise uh, the vendor community that when you're going to these events, to do some environmental scanning to see what is being sold. Everybody named Mama is going to be selling T-shirts. Now, how difficult is it going to be for you to differentiate your T-shirt from somebody else's T-shirt? And the main differentiator is going to be price. You've lowered your price so that you can sell your T-shirt because there are so many vendors that have T-shirts. There's just so much competition. So the biggest thing I wanted to address is just product optimization, identifying what you could sell as a niche product. And for example, I have a sorrow that I'm tight girls with my tight girl, and I was just talking through her process, and she would, because we have such volume, we have to order our products internationally. Most people are sourcing their stuff from China. Well, she would get a bunch of inventory. She would go to, because she's got like 3 or 4 organizations that she's licensed with, and she gets all this inventory, and she goes to the event. She sells product, good or bad, and then she's packing up and she's going to the next event, but all of her money is tied up in her inventory. So her profitability can't be as much as she would like because she's continually ordering product to go to the next event. So at what point are you going to make the amount of profit that it makes sense for you to do this business in terms of your product mix? So let me just take a pause right there for anybody that has any questions.
And I'll just remind folks, if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in that Q&A so we can make sure they get addressed. I think that's a really good point that you made about knowing how much product to bring, right? I think when you create that demand, you'll be in demand and people will come looking for you. I love what Masora mentioned at the top about, um, hey, look, people will come in and look for me. So there's a certain amount of engagement that had to take place prior to the event where you're vending, to be able to take advantage of those moments as well. So um, maybe you can kind of touch on, you know, what does the right event look like? How do you if there are 10 events coming up, do you target all 10, or do you kind of tailor them based on your product or based on your schedule?
Well, scheduling is always the thing because many of us are doing this as supplemental income. Not everybody's a full-time vendor. So availability of your time is something that's important. Now, at the conclave in Tampa, for me, I did about $20,000 in sales, but I didn't have any inventory. All of my sales are pre-purchased because I do custom products. My specialization is customization, so I'm doing custom blazers and branded blazers, and I'm doing custom branded suits for Omega. So you're gonna have to pay me in advance. I'm gonna measure you up. You're gonna, pick out what you want, and then from there, you go through the order process. And now my order process is completely digital. When I was in at the conclave in Charlotte, I had not switched to a digital platform. I was trying to switch to a digital platform, but my team did not get it done in time, so I was relegated to having to write down orders on a form. And thank goodness I had my son there working with me, so I was taking measurements and he was writing them down. However, by the time we got to Tampa, I had definitely had my automated digital process set up, and I have another soror that I met her through vending, and she was selling products and bracelets and those kind of things. But she had a form where every time she had to take an order, she was writing all this stuff down. And she, of course, is solo shop. She's working her booth by herself. And I was like, hey, sis, you need to go digital. You got to get away from these sheets of paper. You got to be able to, automate your process, which is going to free you up to be able to deal with more customers versus having to, stop and try to write everything down as you're talking to your customers. And she is actually moving to a digital platform, and she's talked to me here over the last couple of weeks how excited she was that she's transitioned that process and she's actually completed some digital based orders without having to write her stuff down. The biggest thing is that determining what events to go to is really going to be through trial and error based off the products that you offer. I've only vended for Omega for 10 years, and I did the national event for Delta. Um, the only reason I didn't reach my sales goal is because if anybody was vending at the Delta National Convention, they had a big center area where most of all the vendors were. Then they had another section that was 100 yards away from the center. So I was in that section against the wall. So 99% of the Deltas that came to the convention didn't even know I was there. I was the only vendor there doing what I was doing. But here again, it was about location. So considering I was a first time vendor for Delta, I got the most terrible spot you can get because they made sure that from a participation standpoint, the people who had been with them the longest as vending, they got the better spots, which is I'm okay with that. But for me, that was my first time vending for Delta. I wanted to see did I have a viable product that was wanted, and yes, it was. And I really felt like I would have exceeded my sales goals had I been in a different location where there was accessibility, and that's if I would have been where they just had, if they would have just had all the vendors in one location and not had that side section that they kept making announcements. We have another section. We have another section, but many of those deltas didn't even make it over to the other section.
Hey, that's good insight. I mean, um, I think there's a lot of aspects to having a successful event as a vendor. And I think one of the things we need to do is make a list of everything that we know and then a list of everything that we don't know. Right. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I ran into I ran a site years ago where we filmed step shows all over the country, and we had to handle distribution. So one of the things I realized was, like Dr. Perry mentioned, I wasn't digital yet. People were
Mhm.
still sending me money orders, and I was like,
Mhm.
man, what do I need to do? Fortunately for me, we had a moment where David Letterman, who's actually Greek, called us to order some videos, and my manager at work was actually heard the call, and he was like, dude, I'm sending you to New York. You're going to learn web design. You got to get your website set up. What I learned was I didn't have the credit card system down, but this was a while ago. And
Mhm.
what I did, I contacted a guy. He was a Kappa. I would never forget. I purchased something from him, and I he had a really cool flow. I got the product on time, and I just, hey, can I get a minute of your time? Can you explain to me how you do ABC? And the gentleman stayed on the phone with me about an hour and a half. And I'm like, what do I owe you for this knowledge? And the only thing he said was, just share it with everybody that asked that same question. And I'm like, I can afford that. We're passing it on. We're passing it on. We're paying it forward. And I say that to say, figure out what it is you think you know, figure out things that you want to know, and create partnerships so you can learn how, hey, Dr. Perry, I saw you at this event, and I saw you, you seem like you had a good flow. Can I give you your contact information and schedule a call with you? Right. Don't focus so much on what's going wrong in that event where you are. Plan for future events. Partner with these events. And what I would do all the time, and I know I don't want to overstep, but I just want to share some things that I know work for me. I try to create a relationship at every venue I ended up working. And I knew folks at University of Mississippi who were in student activities. I knew people, and hey, look, I'm going to arrive a day early. Can I meet you here? Can you? And that made a really, really big difference, even if it was for the following year. And the other thing I'll mention as far as going digital, we go to events, we'd sell hundreds of videos at the event, and the most important thing for us was the email address of all of our customers and being able to capture that information and market to them. Hey, look, we'll be here next time. Come here. Here's a coupon. Come look for us. Right. But I'll leave that. You have a couple of questions in the Q&A, Dr. Perry. One is, well, on that topic, any suggestion for a digital platform to use? I know we're going to talk about this in the next part two, summit part two this afternoon. But suggestions for digital platforms, and maybe you can kind of touch on that. What worked for you? What's working for your the young lady that you were helping?
Yeah, I used Equid as my shopping cart. You know, of course, I have a website, but I use Equid for my shopping cart. I think it's ECWID, E Egg Charlie WID, as my shopping cart, and it allows me to manage my products. It's seamless, seconds to input a product, deactivate a product, activate a product, and also I have Ship Easy or Shipping Easy or Ship Easy that's connected to Equid. So if you come into my site and you purchase something that's not a part of, like, I do have some purple ties because we have those all the time. I'll use that for an example. You come in and you purchase a purple tie through my website. I get a notification. I'll get a bing from Equid that you just had a sale. It goes over to Ship Easy. All I do is click a button in Ship Easy. It prints out a post office ship label that I stick that to my priority package, boom, and I ship it out. So, you know, that has eased my order process. Now, my other items, my primary items, which are the customized apparel, which are the blazers or the suits that are branded, you, for me, you order, it goes to my manufacturer and I get a copy and my web developer gets a copy. My manufacturer then submits me with an invoice. I then pay that invoice. They make the product and then they ship it directly to the customer. So the only thing I'm touching is computer. So when I go to the any event and I have a customer that comes up and say, hey, I want to get a blazer or I want to get a suit, they have to go to the website omegablazers.com. They pick their product, they purchase their product, they fill out their ship to information. Then we're going to build their product by going through their body type. We'll go through what they want is the customization of their blazer or suit. And then they go to the last thing is a measurement. And all this is done on their cell phone. So they'll pull up, they'll go to the last section, which is measurement, and they'll tell me where they are. Okay, neck. I measure the neck. They'll put the measurement in. So I go through all the 15 measurements. They put it in on their phone. They hit submit, and once they hit submit, it goes to production. Production then makes the product and ships it directly to them. And it's typically a 30 to 60-day process, depending on the volume. Now I had so much volume this time at the conclave. My 30-day process has turned into a 60-day process. So I have to adjust that in my communication to my customers. At those volume sales like that, um, the time is going to be more so 45 to 60 days than it will be 30 days. But if you would just go to my site right now and you were ordering something, it would probably take you about 30 days or less to receive it.
See, that sounds like successful vendor problems. Oh man, now it takes me 60 days. See, that's what people want to get to the point where they having that problem, right? So that's good. We did have someone else mention they had they also took pre-orders. M Taylor, hey, I don't want to call you M Taylor. Please drop your first name in the chat. So I'll just call you Miss Taylor for now. But she mentioned that they did pre-orders for the different clusters, and it worked out well for them. We have one more question in the Q&A, a couple more. They said one person said, "What is the ideal load to bring to an event for those who don't have a niche product?"
Well, if this person is new to vending, it's going to be trial and error. Here's the thing. I don't care what product you're selling. It starts with three things: product or service you're offering. The first offering. The first thing is, what is the problem or solution that you're addressing? The second thing is, what are you solution that you're providing? Now, your solution is going to be a product or service, and that product or service has to have a value proposition. That is, what makes you different. The third thing is who's willing to pay for it. You have to be able to answer those three questions. So let me take you through how I got into selling blazers and custom branded apparel versus me starting out in 2014 selling bow ties. Out in 2018, I was at the conclave in New Orleans doing my little bow ties. I was offering polyester blazers like everybody else was, but I was offering bow ties, and my differentiating my bow ties is they were two-sided bow ties. I had a 12 by 12 inch matching pocket squares and two sets of matching cufflinks. So that's what made my product different. So one of my older fraternity brothers, they had some blazers they had been sitting on for probably 3 years that they had made in China. But the problem was the blazer said size 44, but it was actually a 36 or 38. So he said, "Hey Perry, can you take these blazers, can you hang them up in your booth for me and see can you sell them for me?" I said, "Yeah, man, no problem." So I had an older brother that came by the booth. He was just walking by because I had the blazers posted. He's like, "Now, that's the kind of blazer I want." And so my doctorate degree is in entrepreneurship. So I'm an entrepreneurship junkie, and I'm always listening to the customers, and that's the thing you have to do. And so what I realized, the entire D9 has the same problem. That is, if you want to get a blazer as a D9 member, more chance than not, it's going to be a polyester square box blazer, whether it's male or female, for the most part. No one had been offering, especially in Omega. I can't so much speak for everybody else, but no one in Omega or Delta is offering a custom branded, made to measure, 100% wool product because grown folks don't wear polyester. Now, the thing is, everybody's not my customer, and I'm not trying to sell to everybody. My blazers start at $550 plus a $50 shipping fee. And that's the thing. You have to identify who exactly is your customer. You cannot sell to everybody. You can't come to me in my booth talking about, "Hey Perry, I know your Blazers 550, man. Can I get that for 400?" Or I stop them at the gate. "Hey, what I have over here is grown man stuff. So if you're not a grown man, don't stop by here. Just keep walking. This is grown man stuff." Right? And so you have to understand and be willing to walk away from business, which I've walked away from business because that's not my price. When you go any of these other places, Neiman Marcus or wherever you shop, even Walmart, you don't go in there telling them people just because you're gonna spend a certain amount of money, what kind of deal they're gonna give you. Only with us as black businesses do we have folks that are coming up to us, especially if we're in the same organization as me vending for Omega. And especially these brothers, they know me now because I've become more recognized since I've been vending since 2014. But I also get to the point where they're not asking me like the deal stuff. But you have to be able to walk away from business because I don't sell on price. I sell on value. And what I have, you can't get nowhere else. And what I do, my customer service is top notch. Have I had to eat some blazers? Absolutely. Was I crying about it? Absolutely. But my customers didn't know that. They didn't know I was crying about having to replace their blazer because I made a mistake. I just replaced their blazer, right? So you have to be cognizant of the fact that determining how much product to bring to an event is going to be determined by what you are selling. And you have to take a look at your break even. You have to take and add everything up. What does it cost for the vendor fee for that event? What does it cost if I need to buy power or I need somebody to load? I mean, what is your total cost from that standpoint? Right? Then you got to look at the numbers. One of the sisters said there was 5,500 participants, and there was 180 vendors at this event. So you got to realize, okay, these folks ain't gonna be buying all my stuff. They're gonna be buying other people's things too. Now, so you have to take a look and say, based on the inventory that I think I need to bring, all those fees, your hotel, your gas, your food, you got to calculate all that, and you have to identify a break even point, and you have to ask yourself, if my break even point is $2,000, and I'm only going to make $3,000 at this event based on the potential, is it worth doing this event? So me, I have made a decision that I am only going to do Omega Sci-Fi national events, and I'm only going to do Delta national events, because I've calculated the fact that all the travel, the hotel, the food, and I don't have an inventory issue, because I use mannequins and my clothes, and so I can put those clothes in a suitcase, a big suitcase, or maybe two suitcases, and I can box up those mannequins. And if I need to ship them, I can ship them to the event. But if it's close enough drive time, I'll drive 6, 7 hours to an event, and I can put that in my truck. But for me to do something in California, I would have to ship product, not product, but ship my mannequins, and I would only use like two mannequins. Whereas if it's something local that I'm driving, I might have four mannequins or six mannequins. I can fit those in my car. But you have to take and calculate all of your expenses, identify what is your break even. How much do I need to sell to break even? And if you did your calculations and you just don't see the money's there for making it worth you doing this business or doing that event, you don't need to go.
Dr. Perry, you touched on so much. I mean, that I think what I liked is the point that you made about know your customer and know who you are. And that's when I realized the difference between a hustler and an entrepreneur. And I realized all of my time, because I just come from a hustling family. And if you ask me, do I sell this? I say yes. I don't even know how to source it. I don't know where to go get it, but I'm going to take advantage of that demand that has just been presented before me, and that comes at a cost, right? And when you get into working smarter, picking the right events, picking the right customer, you find that, okay, I'm going to do a little less hustling and a little more entrepreneuring, because
Yeah.
that implies a certain level of strategic thought, business planning, and you have to be able to look at the data. Sometimes the data will tell you who your customers are. In my example, I was filming all these undergraduate step shows, and every now and then have an alumni step show. And I didn't realize, so I thought my customers were those collegiate Greeks. No, my customers actually were high school counselors that had step teams that happened to be an AKA who had a little AKA-ish step club at our high school. And I was like, oh, that's my customer. But had I not
Hmm.
had that data and a system to capture that information, I never would have discovered that. So great points. You got one more question, Dr. Perry, and I'll leave you with this. And the question was asking, are you a manufacturer for Omega and Delta merchandise?
No, I don't manufacture. I'm just a designer. All my stuff is manufactured in China.
Okay, great, great.
So yeah, my business is 100% outsourced. My manufacturing team is China and Taiwan. My logistics team is UPS, FedEx, and DHL. Right. My local distribution team is the post office. So I don't make and the stuff that I ship is, as I have some accessories that I have left over, but I'm getting out. I have that stuff on fire sale. So I'm getting away now that I ship very little. I'm just shipping the stuff that I have left over. I am strictly in the apparel space where I'm doing custom branded clothes for Omega and Delta. And you got to realize, I started out in 2014 thinking I was going to be this bow tie guy, specialist guy. I've gone from selling bow ties that were not branded, they were just different patterns of bow ties, to now I've transitioned all the way over to now I'm doing custom blazers and custom branded blazers and custom branded suits. So I'm a long way away from where I started. And it's funny that you talked about being a hustler. So when I started out doing bow ties, how I began to get into other things because people would ask me, can I do other things? And like you, my answer was always yes. Yep, I can do that. And then I would go figure out how to source those items because we're so quick to say no without even trying to figure out can we solve that problem for the customer. And it's easy for me to come back and say, hey, I know I told you yes that I could do this particular thing, but after I did my resourcing and all that, I'm not going to be able to do it. So at least you give yourself a chance for the business by saying yes, even when you don't have all the answers.
Hey, I love that point. And one thing I'll I love tips, and I would suggest not only do you get with those vendors that are doing it well, like Dr. Perry, have their own flow, they recognize what works for them and that particular model. Also, feel free to survey and poll some of the people attending these events. Like the young lady mentioned in the table discussion earlier about how overwhelming some of the attendees felt. For me, I know when I attended our conclave, I was in Houston recently. I was like, man, it's like every table had the same set of things and it all looked like scraps at the end of the day because
Mm-hmm.
they all brought a little bit of everything. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have seen, vendor A specializing in these 5 pieces and had sizes for everybody and didn't run out, right? Vendor B had something else. Maybe they have cardigans, but as an attendee, because then it's easy for me to shop. I feel like I'm actually in Nordstrom's or Macy's because
Mm-hmm.
everything is kind of sectioned off. And I know you don't have that luxury as a vendor to kind of pick and choose where you are. But I think having that something that's different and having that something that can be located that sets you apart from what everybody else is, you don't feel like you're in a flea market. You feel like, hey, I know where I'm going. Because if you got good product, and people are going to carry it around. The number one question you're going to hear at that convention floor is, "Where'd you get that?"
Oh,
And what we always get,
let me
it,
stop you right there. Let me stop you right there on the word you get that. So I'm selling ties or I'm selling my bow tie things or whatever, right? And so the customer would say, hey man, do you have a bag? I said, sir, what we've decided to do is pass the savings on to our customers and we don't purchase bags, right? Because I want you to walk around with that product in your hand for somebody to ask you, where do you get that from? People walking around with a black bag, they have no idea what's in that little plastic bag that you have, right? So I want you to walk around with my product in your hand for somebody to ask you, hey man, where'd you get that from? Oh, that booth over there, booth 19.
exactly have.
I have a question
Yes,
as well. Dr. Perry,
yes, ma'am.
without giving away any proprietary information, how does one go about identifying manufacturer or factories to produce your product, especially when you're dealing with overseas? Because we think about Alibaba, we think about the wild stories we've heard when with overseas manufacturers. How what should a vendor who has paid a manufacturing fee to an organization and they say, oh, well, okay, I'm going to mass produce this product or this niche product.
Mhm.
What should or how should they go about selecting an overseas manufacturer without you giving away your proprietary
Oh no, ain't
information?
no. Listen, tell you something.
Mhm.
You can't take nothing from me. So I'm not
Okay.
one of those people who are scared to give out information because I'm scared you
Okay.
won't get the one sale from me that I'm not gonna. You got listen to take something from me. You got to be a monster. Cause I'm telling you, I go to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, be back up at 5 a.m. on my grind, doing what
Yeah.
I do, and seeing what we get stuck on is thinking that this pie is only big enough for a few people. When you went to grandma's house, all the cousins ate. Now, big cuz, he got a bigger piece of pie because he's a big cuz. When you a
Yeah.
little cuz, you got a little piece, but everybody ate. And for me,
Yeah.
what I initially got started was finding a vendor on Alibaba and then sampling. When you are working with a vendor, you got to get them to send you some samples. They're not going to do it for free. You got to pay for your sampling. And the reason I like going through Alibaba is that if you got some problems, you can get that refund button action. The manufacturers don't want no problems with Alibaba. Now I do have a manufacturer. I think we might have started on Alibaba, but we've been working together now for like 9 or 10 years. we don't go through Alibaba. We just go through PayPal for him, but we've been in business together 8, 9, 10 years. Now, my other manufacturer, um, I do still use Alibaba because it's such a high price, high ticketed item. Because my blazers start at 550 to 650 depending on size, plus the $50 shipping fee. We're gonna go through Alibaba because I don't, but I haven't had to use Alibaba for any issues or problems. But that's the first thing. Wherever you source manufacturing from, you need to get some samples first, that so that they can demonstrate that they can make exactly what they say that they're going to make, and then you put down a deposit on your order, and you got to make them send you some pictures and or videos of the pre-shipped product to show that they have made the product before you pay for that product, before you have it shipped to you.
You want to see what the craftsmanship is like, because your customer is not going to contact that manufacturer. They're going to contact that retailer,
Yeah,
right?
because
They're going to contact
you're the
you.
face.
You're going to end up with the reputation,
Yeah,
and you have to.
yeah.
But it really, you have to stand by. And I think a good product is not alone. It's not sufficient. You actually have to have good policies in place. And for me, and you mentioned Walmart. I remember trying to return a product in Walmart, and the people in front of me were having all kind of issues, and it just dawned on me. And I remember just walking out of line and saying, you know what? I'm just going to do the opposite of what they do. And I'm just going to, hey, you have a problem with my DVDs? No problem. You don't have to send it back. I am going to ship you the replacement along with 3 free, because that workflow was cheaper than anything else, because it's hard to complain about free. Okay,
Yeah,
what
but
did you pay for? You
people
know
are
what I
going to
mean?
talk
Because
about.
I addressed that issue, and I made sure that a customer was not just satisfied but delighted. But mainly, I didn't want any bad press. I could not afford it, right? So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, because your customers are going to tell 10 people. They're going to tell 10 people about their experiences, whether it's good or bad. They're going to tell their closest 10 people in the network. And with Greek stuff, you talking about getting a fire started, uh, getting yourself in a position where you don't have superior customer service. You have products that's janky. It ain't gonna take long to get around the fraternity or sorority that you don't want to do business with that vendor because they don't stand by their product. They don't stand by them. You got to stand by your stuff. Now, you made a decision when you thought about it. Not only am I going to give you a replacement DVD, I'm going to give you 3 additional DVDs. Uh, Now that customer's going to be like, "Wow, I appreciate him." And when I talk to my people, I'm going to tell them about my experience. So as business owners, you're not going to win all the time. I've had to eat some blazers, right? But what I know is I'm selling to Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and from the vendors that I've talked to, because I'm not, I just got licensed for Delta last year, but I haven't really done anything yet. But they say Omega is the best organization you want to be a vendor for. If you got the right stuff, we're gonna spend some money, and nobody spends like Omega. And so, other thing I would tell you is connect with other vendors at these events where you're going, and talk to them and ask them about their experiences, and they'll tell you, "Oh, I wouldn't go to Mississippi. I didn't do well. I ain't going. I'm gonna tell you, I'm not going to Mississippi. I don't like I've tried manufacturing in Pakistan 2 times, and it wasn't successful. So me, I'm anti-Pakistan. That's just my experience, right? So I made the decision. I'm just going to stay in China for whatever I need to get made because I haven't pretty much haven't had any problems.
And the thing is, again, knowing what works for you, and sometimes it takes multiple events to figure that out,
Oh yeah,
right? But
yeah.
every event provides valuable feedback. I didn't say positive feedback. I said
Mm-hmm.
valuable feedback. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to learn. And not only do you want to be networking with your customers at these events, you should have, add it to your database, your contact list, your CRM. You should have at least 20 to 30 new contacts just on the vendors themselves. Hey, I'm part of a network. I'm part of Nelly Zone. I just want to connect with you, and you just never know when you can use that connection or when that connection may need you. Because another thing, in addition to a good product, people always remember good advice. It was over 20 years before I received that advice from that captain in Philly, and I still tell everybody about it. It was an Omega that actually sent me to Philly, at a step show. Hey, I got a show coming up. I need you to, and I was like, man, that network has meant everything for me. So, kind of keep that in mind too. Angelica, I know we're coming up on another one. Did we want to kind of break out to some more networking, or Dr. Perry, did you have any kind of closing remarks or tips that you want to leave with the group?
Yeah, when you're sourcing manufacturing, one of the key things you need to do too is understand what the MOQ is, the minimum order quantity. That's going to be huge in determining whether you're going to work with that manufacturer or not. When I first started out doing my neckwear, my MOQ was 100, and as I began to work with them, I know I needed a smaller number, so I was able to get them down, my MOQ down to 50. As I began to work with them a little more, I realized I needed a smaller MLQ of 25 because I'm dealing with basketball teams. Basketball teams don't need 50 for the most part, 25 and they're good. So through your relationships, understand what the MOQ is and understand when you're dealing with other countries, they will negotiate. We're the only country that we don't negotiate when it comes to that entrepreneurship environment. So understand the only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, and pay attention to your environment, not only from the customers that you're dealing with, but also the other vendors. And the last thing I'll say is what I have recognized is I don't do be out events. What I mean is be out events is with party events, and I'll use I'm a part of the chapter here in Atlanta where we do the Sundress and Seersucker event. And one of the reasons that I would not vend at that event, I say, well, look at it this way. You got people come in on Thursday for the Thursday night meet and greet. They're up late. They sleep in late on Friday. They eat late on Friday. And now they're going to be trying to get ready to get dressed to go to the Friday night event. They up late. They come in late. They sleep late. And then they're going to get up and be getting dressed for the Saturday night event. So I don't like be out events because people are there partying and that kind of thing. I like to do conferences because you have people who are registered for the conference. They've got set times to be places. They got to be at their first meeting at 8 o'clock. They might have a break. Then they're going to walk through the vendor area. They got their next meeting. Then they got a break for lunch for about an hour, 2 hours. They're going to walk through the vendor area. So I found that for me, it works better to do conferences where people are having meetings than versus trying to do all these be out events where people are just really focused on partying and really you might get a couple of sales, but you got to go through your break even model. In order for me to participate in this, what do I need to sell for this to be worth it to me to participate in this event? And if it doesn't hit your metrics, then you don't need to do it.
Man, I think we can open the doors to the church at this point. That's great information, man. Great information. I know. I think we've hit all the questions. Monica's asking. She just mentioned that. Hey, she said that's absolutely right. Networking is a crucial aspect of building a growing, successful business, and it involves connecting with others in your industry, or your niche, or sharing ideas, resources, and opportunities. Fostering those relationships can lead to new partnerships, collaborations, and customers. Man, that kind of puts a cap on what Debbie was mentioning about. Hey, she says she's all about what the universe has in store for her, and I'm like, man, this is a great way to cap that, because you have to understand what you are about, what you're trying to provide, and who is trying to consume that set of products and services from you. Those might be 3 different categories. They may be 3 different life lessons that you gotta, or journeys that you gotta go, to discover what those answers are. But I think for anybody trying to get into that manufacturing space or trying to figure out how to source products so that the only thing you have to touch is that computer keyboard versus lifting all the boxes. One tip I would recommend too, and I don't see a lot of vendors doing this, is if you only want to bring 5 pieces or 2 pieces on display, instead of bringing a box of other things, maybe you're at a Delta convention and you have Omega and Delta product there, but there's nothing wrong with having a monitor set up with a little slideshow with some of the other products that you provide, because I guarantee you there's at least one Delta at that convention that's married to an Alpha. there's one Omega that's married to a Sigma Gamma Rho, and hey, we like bringing souvenirs back. You just never know who's going to purchase what, or what events those attendees are going to sponsor on their own. So create those relationships with those people, treat everybody like the VIP, and build on those relationships like Monica's saying. So, hey, great information, Dr. Perry. Yeah, go ahead, Angelica.
Another caveat is this: when a lot of us are at conventions and conferences, I'm talking about the attendees. What happens is that we are so overwhelmed that we're like, I will buy stuff 24/7. I'll buy stuff that I know that I don't need. You can ask my daughter and my husband that, okay? I will buy stuff for friends. But guess what happens? I get to the hotel room with all that stuff. Guess what happens? I cannot pack at all. My biggest problem is that I have to buy a whole nother suitcase. And then, of course, those of you who fly, I don't fly. I think you all get charged extra for extra baggage and extra luggage weight or whatever. So it would be great that if a vendor brought a few pieces, put the other pieces or whatever they have to offer on a screen, and a person can do a touch order and it can just be delivered right to their home. So by the time they get home, that stuff may be on their front porch or, just delivered and all. So that's a great type of idea. Think about it, hint, hint, fellow vendors, that people can order and it just gets shipped directly to the house instead of us trying to pack a suitcase. Because there have been many a times when I've been at a conference, I had to buy another suitcase, and then that's another cost to get it, put on. Yeah.
Angelica, you're about to turn me back into a hustler. Now I'm about to go start my own suitcase packing conference business.
Yeah.
Well, that's about becoming digital. I mean, as a vendor, you need to become digital. You got to have your website. You got to have a good shopping cart, and you can do that. And you don't have to bring all that product. You just got to have a way for folks to like, even if you're just bringing products to demo. And that would be a good way for you not to have to bring all that stuff to these events, is that you can demo some of the events, as she said, and have them just go to your site and make the purchase of whatever they're going to purchase, these different things, and they just pay for the shipping because they got to pay for it anyway. If they're going to do the suitcase or they're going to go to DHL or somebody to pack their stuff up, they got to do that anyway. So that's a great idea. Great recommendation.
Well, we're getting all types of ideas and all. And thank you so much, Dr. Alvin S. Perry. I got in touch with him earlier this summer. I was in Alabama. I said, hey. At all. So I'm so glad that you returned my phone call, and I'm glad that you're here today as well. And we're looking forward to some great relationships being forged with this summit today, and then going forward with other ideas. Now, you all gave me some great ideas for our newsletter as well, because we will have a newsletter that will go out to vendors. And of course, those who are not with the Creamery or Nelliathon, everybody's entitled to get a newsletter with thought leaders. And I do see Dr. Perry as one of the thought leaders, one of the many thought leaders that I have encountered since the inception of Nelliathon and the Creamery. And of course, Eric Tucker is one of our thought leaders and all. But we have other thought leaders on the floor right now, too. And what I would like to do is that, based on what has been discussed in this session right here, does anybody have any input, insights, other questions prior to us coming to our next segment?